Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another Warhammer fantasy video from the Templin Institute. They've been putting out a lot of fantasy videos lately, ever since Total War Warhammer 3 has come out, which has been so much fun. I have been playing it almost non-stop. Well, then Elden Ring came out, so kind of got a backseat. But before that, I did play a lot of Total War Warhammer 3, and I still do. I really like the Demon Prince. The Demon Prince is so much fun just because of all the customization you can do. I mean, I've had Corn Head, Nurgle Body, Tzeentch Legs, Tzeentch Wings, Slaanesh Weapon, or half Corn, half Nurgle, half Tzeentch and Slaanesh, and just mixing it up has been so much fun. Plus it is really cool being able to, customize your Demon Prince on the fly, if you will. So if you're fighting an army that has like a lot of shooting and stuff, and they got a lot of armor piercing, I'm going to switch over to, Nurgle and stuff like that, get a lot of the defense and HP boosts and stuff like that. So it's been so much fun. I did play a little bit of Grand Cathay. I really like them as well. I still got to try Ogres and, of course, Kislev. I still haven't tried them yet, so I do hope to get around to them as soon as I can. But yeah, I've been having a blast with it. Let me know what you guys think. Have you guys been enjoying Total War Warhammer 3? Let me know. And what army have you been playing the most of? Have you tried them all? Have you only done one and stuck with that one? Have you jumped around? Let me know. Alright, so anyways, on to the video. It is called Which Human Nation is the Most Powerful in the Warhammer World? Very interesting. Let's find out. Here we go. That is a good question. I wonder how you'd figure that out.
Millennia of strife, wars, natural disasters, and unnatural machinations have splintered every major civilization across the so-called Warhammer world. The Dwarf Empire has long since collapsed into semi-independent mountain strongholds. The High Elves face overseas rivals in Athaloran and Nagaroth, and this is to say nothing of the Orcs, Goblins, Ogres, Skaven, and other bestial races. Yet, however fractured these societies might be, they all exhibit, to some extent, a sense of ancestral kinship, or maybe even hatred, derived from a shared history, culture, or religion. There is one major exception: humanity. The Elves all trace their lineage to the same ancient homeland. Every Ogre worships the Great Maw, and every Skaven fears the Great Horned Rat. This, at least in some sense, unites them. But to the merchants of Sigmar's empire, the peasants of Grand Cathay are every bit as alien as the Elves are of distant Ulthuan. Conversely, Cathay has no real brotherly affection for the Empire, or Kislev, or Bretonnia. Humanity has no single leader, no binding religion, and no leading nation to which all others pay homage.
Well,
but
that
in the
is
case
true.
of the latter, could we maybe select a favorite candidate? Which single human nation is the paragon amongst its peers? Which is the most capable and the most powerful in the Warhammer world? To answer this question, we first need to properly define how we're measuring power. While it might be tempting to measure this purely by military strength, which nation could dominate the others through conquest, I think this is a narrow view and fails to consider many other expressions of power. Instead, we'll be considering
supplies,
a few factors.
food,
demographics.
money.
How large is a nation's population? Geography.
That too.
What is the extent of its territorial claims and how amenable are they to human settlement? Economy. How advanced are its industries and production? Political system. How are its leaders selected and how effective is their rule? Military. What is the size and capabilities of its armies and allies? And lastly, culture. To what extent does its prevailing beliefs influence the rest of the world? We'll grade each of these as either low, middling, high, or dominant. Now, when looking at the nation-states that demonstrate a large amount of power in these areas, we can narrow our candidates down to 4. The Empire of Man, the Kingdom of Bretonnia, the Tsardom of Kislev, and Grand Cathay. I mean no disrespect to Estalia, Telea, Nippon, or Araby.
Yeah, I kind
While
of
they
think
possess
military will
significant
be the
power
Empire.
in certain areas, I don't believe they show enough potential in every category to warrant inclusion. Though I must confess that might change if more information on these nations becomes available. Likewise, while Nehekara at its peak would certainly be a candidate for the most powerful human nation, today
Really?
it's nothing but bleached bones and memories. So we'll confine
And
our
they're not even around
selections to the
anymore.
era of Karl Franz. Okay, starting with demographics. How do each of our nations compare? As with many of the other categories on our list, it's impossible to get reliable numbers, but I think it's fair to say that Grand Cathay possesses the largest population of any human nation in the known world. If I had to guess, it would be somewhere in the low hundreds of millions. In second place is likely the Empire of Man, which almost certainly is the most urbanized nation. I'd say
Okay.
high tens of millions, possibly exceeding 100 million, but no more than 150. Kislev and Bretonia are likely tied for third place, both in the low tens of millions. These two nations are much more rural, with a much lower standard of living, and in the case of Kislev, a much greater mortality rate. Given that Cathay probably has a larger population than the rest of our top 4 nations combined, I'm classifying it as dominant, with the Empire at high, and Bretonia and Kislev at middling. Next up is
Okay.
geography. This might be the most difficult category to get any kind of information on.
I'd probably say
as
goes
maps
to
of the Warhammer world
Empire
tend to be unreliable.
Bretonia.
Again, it's tempting to rank Cathay very highly here. It is probably the largest human nation. But its geography is a little underwhelming. Much of it is contaminated by a vast warpstone desert, or divided between extensive mountain ranges.
Yeah.
The nation might be vast, but its fertile land
Kislev has just got
concentrated
all
on its
snow,
coasts and
so-
riverlands. The Empire of Man is the largest human nation in the Old World at least, and maybe rivals Cathay, but has much more favorable geography. It's covered in farmlands and forests, with smaller, less divisive mountain ranges. The only blight in the Empire is Sylvania, which represents a smaller fraction of its territory.
Yeah.
But it's Bretonia, I think, that's the clear winner here.
Okay.
It may not be the largest human nation, although it does rival the Empire, but it has by far the most usable land. For the most part, its geography is very similar to that of its northern neighbor, with 2 notable improvements. It has better access to the Great Ocean, for most of the Empire's ports are upriver or frozen in winter.
Okay, yeah.
Bretonia also has, just generally, a much more pleasant climate, perfect for growing vineyards and making wine. But if Bretonia is the clear winner, Kislev is unfortunately the loser. Most of their
Yeah.
territory is inhospitable, even in the best of times, and a frozen wasteland in the winter. Every major port is likewise inaccessible for a large part of the year. So based on all this, I'm classifying the geography of Bretonia at high, Cathay and the Empire at middling, bordering on high, and Kislev
Okay, I think
at
that's why I
low.
said Bretonia or
Now
Empire,
the economy.
maybe.
And here is where the Empire of Man really shines. In
Yeah.
fact, I believe it's just on the verge of an industrial revolution. It's beginning to transition from hand production methods to machines, possesses steam power, and the beginnings of a mechanized factory system. It also wholly embraced the rise of the merchant class, which is dominating its nobility. The rest of the nations on our list are stuck at some level of feudalism. Bretonia
yeah.
is probably at the bottom of the list. Its economy is locked in a strict class system with
Yeah,
few
that's
methods
true.
of creating capital. Kislev is only slightly better. Its cities are very wealthy, but the remainder of the country is incredibly poor.
Oh,
Cathay is
okay.
tough.
Didn't know
In
that.
terms of raw production, it probably equals or outstrips the Empire, but that's only because of its immense population. Regardless of how much it produces, the methods involved are very rudimentary. I'm going to classify the Empire as high, bordering on dominant, Cathay at middling, and Kislev and Bretonia at low.
Okay.
So, government. I think the expectation here might be that Cathay again would be dominant. After all, its ruling emperor and nobility are immortal, benevolent dragons, which, depending on your outlook, might have disqualified
Okay, well, I
it
mean, if you're
from the
looking at
human
that,
nations
then
altogether. But the
makes sense.
propaganda of Cathay has nothing but good things to say about these dragons, but I don't buy it. For all their supposed wisdom, they have proven to be no better able at avoiding civil war among themselves than their human counterparts. And when we look at the advantages Cathay possesses, how many of these were the direct result of good governance versus pure luck or its inherent geopolitical position? The Empire of Man is maybe a bit weaker in this field. It's really a collection of electoral provinces, and getting each elector count to work together can be difficult or even impossible.
Okay.
Karl Franz seems capable, but there's no guarantee his replacement will be as good or even remotely competent. That said, when the electoral provinces do work together, their total
can't see
power is probably the
Bretonia?
greatest in the world. It's ultimately, though, all dependent on the effectiveness
Maybe
of the emperor.
Kislev then.
Bretonia is again likely the weakest of the bunch,
Okay.
still using an anachronistic feudal system that's long since been replaced everywhere else. Kislev, though, might be unusually strong here. The powers afforded to the Tsar are not bound to any meaningful constitution or legislature, so the office might be the single most powerful in the world, maybe equaling that of
That's
Cathay's
such a
Dragon Emperor.
badass
Of course,
picture
just as with the
image
Empire,
of her.
there's the risk that you might get an incompetent Tsar who would ruin Kislev. But given
She
that
is
the
really
land
badass.
itself
I'm
seems
dying
to
to
have
try
some
her
sort of
out.
influence on its most recent Tsarina, I'm inclined to believe that this risk is a bit reduced in Kislev, at
Such a
least
cool
in
picture.
recent generations. So I'm going to put Kislev at high, Cathay at high or middling, depending on how involved the Emperor decides to be in that
Bretonia
moment.
low.
The Empire of Man at middling or high, and Bretonia at low. That takes us to military power, and I think our first real
Empire
controversial choice
of
so far.
Grand
I'm going to
Cathay.
go out on a limb and say that Kislev's army is the most effective in the known world. It's
Really?
not the largest or the most advanced, but it has successfully resisted more invasions than probably any other power.
Okay.
It's constantly at war. Its regiments are made entirely out of seasoned veterans. There's basically
okay.
no such thing as a raw recruit when you live on the border with the realm of chaos. If tough lands breed tough
Okay,
people,
that makes sense.
then no one is tougher than the Kislevites. What's truly astonishing, though, is that while Cathay is in the same position, bordering the realms of chaos, they've needed to build a gigantic wall to resist northern incursions, and that hasn't always succeeded, while Kislev accomplishes the same result with nothing but its armies, discipline, and tactics. And not to mention a fraction of the resources. That said, Cathay's war machines are very impressive.
They are.
especially the
They are
Terracotta
really
Sentinels
cool.
and
I
the
like
Sky
using
Fleet,
those things.
Although the army as a whole is not used to aggressive campaigns. The Empire of Man is also up there, mostly due to the sophistication of its arms, particularly its artillery, although the
Oh, yeah.
quality of its armies can
Steam
vary
tanks.
wildly from province to province. Bretonia probably comes in last here. Antiquated armies in the same manner as its economy and government. But the military
you just
strength
got
of a
knights.
nation
I mean-
also includes that nation's allies, and the Western
Then you got like
powers
peasants
are
and stuff
definitely
like
ahead of
that,
Cathay
so
here. The Empire of Man, Kislev, Bretonia, they all have strong ties with one another and the neighboring Dwarven kingdoms. In times of great peril, they can also count on the High Elves and maybe even the Wood Elves. Cathay, meanwhile, is entirely without any meaningful allies so far as I'm aware. The Empire of Man and Kislev both score a high, while Bretonia
Okay.
and Cathay are left at middling. Like I said, this might be a controversial choice.
culture.
Now we end things with culture. And I should specify here that
I
what
don't
I'm
know
really
on this
talking
one.
about is soft power. How effective are these nations at coercing others through appeal and attraction? I think the Empire of Man is unchallenged here. Its religion, particularly the cult of Sigmar, has spread everywhere throughout the Old World, and even smaller cults like the cult of Ulrich are pretty well known.
Okay.
The Empire is often seen across the Old World as the leader in the fight against chaos, and many other smaller nations in the Border Princes and elsewhere emulate its example. The religions of Kislev and Bretonia, meanwhile, are linked closely with their land, so it doesn't have much appeal to people outside its borders. That said, they are heavily involved in trade, so some measure of soft power is expressed that way. Cathay is in a similar spot, but for a different reason. Its rulers are very isolationist and don't even try to export its culture. So I'm thinking the
Interesting.
Empire is dominant, Kislev and Bretonia are at middling, and Cathay is at low. To be clear,
Ouch.
I'm not saying its culture is inferior, it's just not well known among other nations and thus less appealing.
So it kind of looks like Empire
Now we
wins.
arrive at the final rankings. In my opinion, of the big four, Bretonia is the weakest, largely due to its outdated institutions.
Yep.
Its saving graces are its favorable geography and powerful allies. Kislev is in third place due to its experienced military and strong centralized authority.
Okay.
Cathay is in second place, saddled by isolationism and a government that doesn't really reflect its citizenry. And the most powerful human nation in the Warhammer world is
The
the
Empire.
Empire of Man,
Yeah.
due to its sophisticated economy, effective military, favorable geography, but most importantly, the worldwide appeal of the imperial system and the god King Sigmar. But that, of course, is just my opinion. And even though these rankings were divinely inspired, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you disagree with my rankings? Are there other important factors I didn't include? How would you
No,
rank
I think I
each
kind of
nation in these
agree.
categories? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, this has been Incoming.
Okay, so there we go. I think I kind of agree. I mean, just go back to the chart there. All right, so demographics, Grand Cathay. Yeah, I can see that. Geography. Okay, yep, goes to Bretonia for high, since they got all that land and the farmland and the, the ports and stuff like that. Economy, yep. Empire Man, high. Bretonia, low. Kislev, low. Bretonia still got like the peasantry and stuff like that. Kislev with all the snow and stuff like that. Can't really farm much of anything. Politics, yep. Bretonia still got, the, the tier system and stuff like that. Military, yeah, I mean, Empire and Kislev, made some great points about Kislev being basically battle-hardened fighters and stuff like that. Same thing with Empire, they just got the might and all the great artillery and stuff like that. Grand Cathay, yep, I can see that. They're right there with Chaos. They got all those really cool, like, what do they call, like the balloon thingies and stuff like that. They're so much fun to use. And then Bretonia, they probably got the best mounted knights anywhere, but that's all they got. Yeah, they got some foot troops, but not that good. Half the stuff is like peasants and stuff like that. So I mean, there's only so much cavalry can do, so that makes sense. Plus, you also got to feed all the horses and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I agree with those two. Culture, yeah. Empire Man, Grand Cathay, I guess being isolationists, not that helpful, especially in this world. You don't want to be alone, not wise. You'd want as many allies and as many friends as you can, because what if you ever need them? So I mean, can't do it when it's too late. Chaos is invading us, and now we're getting overrun. Kind of need some help. Can you guys come help us? Nice to meet you. So yeah, but yeah, I kind of had a feeling Empire was gonna win. I mean, I kind of hope they do like another one, like maybe against I don't know, like most powerful nation. Which elven nation? That'd be kind of cool. Dark elves, wood elves, high elves. That'd be kind of interesting. Dwarves, maybe? I don't know if there's enough dwarven clans, known dwarven clans to do. Maybe. I don't know. But I kind of hope they do more of these, because these are actually kind of interesting. So, there we go. Empire of Man wins as the most powerful nation, or most human nation, as the most powerful. So, do you agree with everything listed here, or do you think otherwise? Let me know. So, anyways, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description box below. And other than that, if you guys got any other videos you want me to check out, leave a link or let me know which ones, and I'll be happy to do more. If you like Warhammer Fantasy, cool. If you want 40k, cool. I like checking out both of them. Kind of seems like more people like 40k than Fantasy, but it is what it is. I like both, I do like good old-fashioned sword and shield, old school rank and file troops. But I also like the whole setting of 40k, so yeah. Alright, so other than that, yeah, just stick around. More videos are on the way, and I will see you guys next time.